If you know how to mow a lawn, you already have a skill that can earn you $1,000 or more every week. Making $1,000 a week mowing lawns isn't complicated, but the way you structure that week can be the difference between money in your pocket and running yourself into the ground. At $50 per lawn, you need 20 stops. At $35, you need 29. That difference affects far more than your revenue. In this video, I'm going to break down the numbers behind a $1,000 mowing week, show you what that schedule could realistically look like, and explain how to build it around the equipment you already have. The right plan will depend on your local market, the properties around you, the equipment you're using, and how much time you have available. If you haven't fully worked out your numbers yet, I'm going to go over a few examples and give you some prices to start with later in this video. Don't worry about being exact. I certainly didn't have everything figured out when I started 30 years ago. You learn by doing the work, tracking what happens, and improving your pricing as you gain experience. Let's begin with the formula behind the goal. Revenue equals the number of clients you service, multiplied by your average job size, multiplied by the number of weeks you perform the work. When I say clients, I'm referring to the number of properties you service each week. Your average job size is the average amount you collect each time you complete a service, and the number of weeks refers to how long your lawn care season is. For me, it's roughly 28 to 32 weeks a year, but for you that might be different, like those of you in the southern states will service all year round. We're trying to generate $1,000 in 1 week, so we can simplify the formula. Your $1,000 goal equals the number of lawns you service multiplied by your average price per lawn. Once you put the goal into a formula, it becomes much easier to plan. You're no longer looking at $1,000 as one large number that you somehow need to find. You're breaking it into individual jobs that you can schedule throughout the week. Remember that we're talking about revenue here, not profit. Your profit is what remains after accounting for fuel, equipment, insurance, travel, taxes, and the other costs of operating your business. I'm going to go over those costs and cover the difference between the money you make and the money you keep in a later video. For now, we're going to stick with revenue. Before we calculate the number of lawns you need, we have to talk about time. One of the biggest pricing mistakes I see is only thinking about how long the mower will be running. You're not only committing your mowing time to that customer, you're committing the time it takes to load up your equipment, drive to the property, unload, mow, trim, blow, and then reload and drive to the next job. If you're driving between properties, you're still using working time. That travel has to be accounted for somewhere in your price. A useful way to estimate the mowing portion is to calculate how many minutes your equipment requires to mow 1,000 square feet. You don't need to measure everything down to the second when you're starting, but you do need a sensible estimate. You can easily know your average by recording a few real jobs you complete, or just starting a timer and stopping when you finish. I did exactly this with a push mower, walk behind, and zero turn. So if you want to know my production times to make it easier, here they are. Remember, I'm a 60-year-old dude, so you'll probably be a bit quicker. But for me, a 21-inch push mower takes roughly around 3 minutes to cover 1,000 square feet. A 48-inch walk behind is closer to 2 minutes, while a sit-down riding mower takes about 1 minute per 1,000 square feet. Those are starting estimates, not universal production rates. A property with hills, gates, trees, obstacles, awkward corners, or a lot of trimming will take longer than an open lawn of the same size. However, having a baseline helps you understand whether a property belongs in a 20-minute space on your schedule or whether it could consume an hour. Your equipment should also influence the properties you pursue. If you're beginning with a basic mower, a string trimmer, and a blower, you can still start earning money. You simply have to be smart about the work you accept. I wouldn't use that setup to chase enormous properties or attempt 5-acre lawns. I also wouldn't drive 30 minutes across town to mow one small yard for a low price. That's how you spend most of your day driving around, wearing yourself out, and wondering why the business isn't producing much money. Look for properties that suit the equipment you already own and try to build them close together. A smaller mower can work perfectly well on compact residential lawns, especially when several of those customers are located in the same neighborhood. You can upgrade your equipment as the work and revenue begin to justify it. Now let's apply this to the $1,000 goal. Suppose your average mowing price is $50. I know every lawn isn't priced at $50. I'm just using a round number to simplify things. In my area, $50 makes sense for larger residential properties. My minimum is $35, which is for smaller residential properties. You might have a different minimum price, or your market might be at a higher price. But it's most likely that you'll have a range of prices across your client base, depending on lawn sizes. So I'm going to start with $50 a lawn, and later in this video, I'll go over $35 a lawn. But in reality, it could actually look more like servicing 5 lawns at $50, 4 lawns at $45, 6 lawns at $40, and 10 lawns at $35, which in total gets you $1,020. You get it, it'll be a mix. But when you're just starting out, simple is better. So if you charge $50 per lawn, you need 20 lawns to generate $1,000. Over a 5-day week, that's 4 lawns per day. 4 $50 lawns produce $200 each day, and 5 $200 days give you your $1,000 week. You could also arrange those 20 lawns differently. If you only want to mow 4 days, you could schedule 5 lawns per day. If you're building the business around another job and only have weekends available, you could aim for 10 lawns on Saturday and another 10 on Sunday. This is where route density becomes really important, especially if you're condensing 20 or more lawns into 2 days. Remember earlier we mentioned how your time needs to be taken into account when you price. Well, if you've got 10 lawns in one day, but they're spread across an entire suburb, they could actually be costing more than they're making. Every minute you're driving to another property, you're spending more on fuel, causing more wear and tear on your vehicle, creating a cost later on, and you're taking more of your own time you could be spending on other jobs. If you can't make up for those costs in your pricing because of the market or the size of the properties, then you're reducing your revenue for that day. 10 lawns making you $500 now becomes closer to $100 for that day, after you've spent everything you earned on fuel, time, and other expenses. If your route is tightly packed and each property is relatively close together, then you can complete more jobs in the day and spend less time on travel and money on fuel. This is the exact square mile I started in, and I kept my first 15 customers all in this one area. I didn't know it at the time, but that made starting and growing so much easier than it could have been. Now let's run the numbers using a $35 average. To get to $1,000 at $35 a lawn, you need just over 28 lawns, which we can round up to 29 lawns. 29 lawns at $35 produce $1,015 in weekly revenue. Over 5 working days, you need to complete around 6 lawns per day. 6 lawns at $35 produce $210, so 5 similar days would put you slightly above the $1,000 target. This comparison shows why your pricing and route matter so much. At $50 per service, you need 20 stops. At $35, you need 29 stops. That's 9 additional properties to schedule, travel to, unload at, service, and leave. If those properties are spread out, those extra stops could consume a large part of your week. If you operate in a market where smaller properties support a lower average price, you'll need to create a tighter route, complete more volume, or increase the value of some stops with another service. Adding one paid service is often the easiest way to make the $1,000 goal more manageable. The important word there is paid. When you're new, it's easy to start giving away small jobs because you want customers to like you. You might pull some weeds or clean up an area without charging for it. There's nothing wrong with providing excellent service, but you shouldn't confuse excellent service with free labor. Customers learn to trust you because you arrive when you said you would, communicate clearly, and consistently leave the property looking good. You don't have to give away your time to prove your value. When I'm already servicing a property and notice something that needs attention, I can simply offer to handle it. That might be shrub trimming, edging, or installing mulch. For example, I might say, I notice the shrubs are starting to become overgrown. If you'd like, I can trim and clean them up while I'm here next time. That gives the customer a useful option without creating any pressure. Now consider what that can do to your daily revenue. If you mow 10 lawns at $35 each, you generate $350. If one of those customers also accepts a $200 shrub trimming job, the day increases to $550. 2 days structured like that would take you beyond $1,000. You wouldn't need to find 29 separate mowing customers immediately because you'd be earning more from some of the properties already on your route. That's what I mean by stacking services. You don't need to offer every lawn and landscape service you can think of. You're using mowing as your recurring base and adding one service that fits your abilities, equipment, and customers. Mowing is relatively easy to start because the physical skills can be learned. You can improve at mowing, trimming, edging, and cleaning up as you gain experience. However, once the business begins growing, you'll quickly encounter the other side of running it. You'll have to think about scheduling, repairs and maintenance, cash flow, insurance, tax, hiring and payroll, and eventually you'll need to learn how to effectively delegate. If your prices don't support those things, you can stay incredibly busy without making meaningful progress. That's why I place so much emphasis on knowing your numbers. Your numbers help you decide which work is worth accepting, how tightly your route needs to be built, and whether the business is actually moving forward. I'm keeping this video focused on the numbers and the weekly plan. I've covered how to market to the customers you want and build a tight route in separate videos. Check those out from the link in the description. For now, choose the version that fits your equipment, your market, and the time you have available. Write down your average price, calculate how many jobs you need, and build your schedule around that target. That's how you turn your first $1,000 from an idea into a plan you can actually follow. Good luck out there.